Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to Solitude. And last time out, we did quite an ambitious build and put in a stadium, which I know a few of you criticised because we've only got 12,000 population. Maybe a little bit small for a stadium at this stage, but I am taking a creative approach with this series and kind of building out from one space, really. So I wanted a stadium there, and it was time to add it in. It was a bold choice. But today the tables have turned and we actually have a little bit of industrial demand, and there's a space screaming out for some industry that we have left blank between our mall area and our little oil area and residential district on the edge of Serenity. So we're going to be filling that out, as well as finally detailing up the cargo rail yard that I put in the oil episode as well. But before we get started on that today, you may notice a few odd things in the city, like flying trucks towards our cargo stations. And unfortunately, the fact that we're building round a cargo station today may cause a few interesting game mechanics to happen. That is a known bug, and there is a patch coming for it, I believe, so it should be sorted pretty soon, and we just have to ignore that for now. And the second thing is there is a ton of naming to do. I've got quite behind on it, so we're going to start off with that. So first up, you may remember a really long time ago when we built out the Caswady Beach, we also put in our sewage treatment plant. So I've gone with Solitude for that. It seemed quite a popular choice, and that was a suggestion by Smokey Dylan. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. I love the punny names. And we've also got Secluded Slopes up here, which was a suggestion by Linnell. Thank you so much for that as well. Love that little name. And then if we fly on over here, we obviously have the favela. Now, I have to make a special mention to Casa Red for their suggestion of ondas, which means waves in Portuguese. I really, really love that suggestion. However, because there were so many people that suggested this or similar, I have decided to go with favela. And I think that was first suggested by David Strother. So thank you so much for those suggestions, and for everyone else who mentioned that. Yeah, we've gone for favela over here. But again, special mention to Casa Red for your suggestion there. I really like that. And then over here, our rice fields. We've gone for Paditude, and that was a suggestion by Malay. Thank you so much, Malay. Love that for our little rice fields over here. And then all the way over here in our mall area, we have gone for Shopitude, which was a suggestion by Karsten Zimmerman. Thank you so much for that. Again, absolutely love it. I'm really liking the kind of play on Solitude names. All the tunes, all the souls, and yeah, I like it. Thank you so much for the suggestions, and keep them coming for other areas in our city as well. Okay, so we are going to start off today with this rail yard, which was just inadvertently plunked in. I don't even think I showed you guys it when I built out solid crude oil area over here. I put this in so that we can have easy access to a cargo station for this industry area over here. Again, it's pretty nicely used actually in this area, although we've got stupid truck mechanics going on because of that annoying bug. So we'll ignore that for now. But we really need to flesh out this area. Now, importantly with this, we've got our local train lines, which are coming in over here. As mentioned in the last episode, this one will take them through directly into the downtown transport hub. And this one goes up through to our station in the stadium district here, and we'll continue on probably round into the downtown still, but also potentially across the mountains somewhere if we could get over this monstrous height and on into other areas. But we do have our intercity train line over here, which needs to continue, and we need a bypass because I want the intercity passenger trains to also be able to bypass the cargo station here too. So for the passenger bypass line, I'm thinking I quite like this pretty parallel to how the current line sits in here. So I think like that, just leaving a very small gap in between will be fine for now, and we can connect it up at that end. And what we'll do here is just very simply bring it out like that, and let's use a little bit of move it to give it a slightly nicer curve there. We just hold Alt, that'll snap nicely into place. So that'll ultimately be the bypass line that will be the faster route, not stopping at this station, and hopefully the trains choose the option to use that one. But then we also do want to build out a train yard up here too. Now I realise with this is not an ideal setup, because usually you want to leave a full gap for a cargo train in between your train junctions and the cargo station. So I am fully expecting at some point to get backed up cargo traffic here. But I kind of don't really mind, because this is how we're setting it up in this city. If we get it backed up, we'll remove those trains and we'll fix it. Unfortunately, some of the game mechanics within Cities Skylines, particularly on trains, don't really adhere to real life situations. So yeah, we are going to somewhat choose to ignore that. if it does happen. So yeah, from here, what I do want to do is bring out a really nice little rail yard. So we're going to do several bits of rail that are all nicely parallel to each other. And we can see if we can use Move It to get these a little bit closer as well. So if we go like that, then we're going to use our nodes here. We're just going to grab those. And I've actually decided just to keep this. And we'll make it the same height as well, I should add. But I've decided to keep these as two-way tracks rather than using the one-way tracks we used in the very small little rail yard that we had back in the farm area, because we don't get those annoying notifications about the tracks not being connected, because ultimately we're not going to be connecting these up at this end. It's only going to be connected in this end because it's purely decorative. It's completely non-functional, but hopefully it will look nice in our city. So something like this will do really nicely, but actually I do want to get rid of the catenary wires, the railway power lines as they're called on network skins there. So we're going to remove all of those. So yeah, what we're going to do is bring out a section for this rail yard like this of these junctions. Now that hasn't connected, so let's just undo that section for now. And I'm just going to bring these out in horrendously awful straight lines for the moment. And we'll get this sorted and fixed up. Now we want the tracks to connect. I think that is a super important part of it. Like the tracks actually have to look like a train could get along it. So I think we'll go like that, and then we'll try, if we can stop snapping to nose, try and connect this in slightly further up. Yeah, we're getting horrendous jankiness. But yeah, a little bit of Move It will fix that nicely. So all of those rail lines are actually now kind of connected. I'm just going to adjust these back very, very slightly here. I want to try and make sure I'm keeping them straight. Because what I would like to come over here is a slight level crossing, which will not be that busy because I'm not putting too many buildings down here. It shouldn't be that busy at least anyway, but we're going to come straight over the rail like this and out behind these lines here, because what I would like to add here is a couple of kind of warehouses just to flesh out the style of this railway yard. So for that, we're going to be using a bit of Ivanya's Industrial Evolution buildings. On the level 2s and the level 3s, there's tons of kind of warehouse looking buildings. And these ones in particular, I think would go really nicely into a rail yard like this one. So we'll just move them a little bit away from the railway track there. Make sure that this is all nicely level. And then I will also reset this so it's the same colour. Looks like one nice long warehouse yard there. And we'll just need to do obviously a bit of detailing around this, as well as some key action in here so that we don't have this kind of green terrain sitting through here. So I think for that, I'm actually going to use a simple city key fenceless key for this from the Bridges and Piers content creator pack. And if you would like to pick that up, or the Industrial Evolution content creator pack, which frankly is absolutely amazing, then please do consider checking out my instant gaming link in the description below. There is so many games at really heavily discounted prices across PC and consoles as well, and it also helps to support the channel, so it's greatly appreciated from me. But that is kind of the basic setup for here, but I did just remember one little detail that I did want to add in, so I'm just going to adjust these rail lines back slightly so that they are kind of almost up against this key actually at the back here. Again, we're just going to have to use Move It just to sort out some of these lines here so that they're not being awkward and messing around with the terrain there. And of course we're just going to need to level this off again. In the middle here we can do another little trick with keys, and this time we're going to use vanilla keys for this and just the absolute basic key that came with the base game. I'm just going to place this in like so, in between our railway tracks, because what this can do is act as a kind of loading platform between the tracks here. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit lower. So we'll go down to something like that. And then at the ends here as well, we can kind of taper this into the ground. So let's turn off all snapping, apart from angle. We'll go like that. We'll hope that that node is still in there, which it's not. So let's use Network Multi-Tool. We'll add our little node in there, and then we can get this end one and just sink this right into the ground. Now we need to be careful that we don't go too far, because you can see it kind of messes with the terrain. As long as we can get a sort of gentle slope up, I'm fine with that effect. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing at this end. So yeah, something like that will do. Then around the front of the cargo station, we obviously want to do quite a bit of detailing in here, but importantly, I quite like to get in some warehouses. And what we do have is we have some of these awesome assets, the container storage stacks, which I think is from Avanya from the workshop. So we're going to add in a couple of these just to kind of fill out this container area out the front of the cargo station here. So I'm thinking we'll have a couple of them back to back. I'm going to add in another road here. Let's just turn off snapping for a second. We'll get this in nice and level. Let's just shift this up a little bit on this road. We've got another node right there that we're going to need to get rid of. So again, network multi-tool can sort us out for that, and we'll just remove that node. And let's add in a couple more back to back. Like, yeah, we're going to have to use move it to align these nicely. But this should look pretty cool, I think. Especially when it's kind of all full of containers. And these assets do fill up as well, which is like the best thing about them. So when there's not very many goods in them, they look empty. Or like this at least, and when they're pretty full, they're absolutely stacked full of containers. So awesome little assets there. I think to give it a bit of variation, actually, I should have just changed some of these up for some different stacks, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. And then that just changes the pattern of the containers for when they're empty, so it looks a little bit more random and less like I've just plopped in the same asset over and over. Now for these, because we do have the oil area nice and close, I am going to choose one of them on petroleum and one of them on plastics, because I think that makes sense. And then for the others, I think we'll go for unique factory products, for a reason that you'll find out in just a second, and one on commercial zones goods. So I feel like that's kind of an appropriate setup for that. So that's the basic overall shape. Now, of course, we're going to be putting some train assets into here, lots more detailing around the front of the cargo station as well to extend out these little cargo areas that we have out the front here. I might even bob off some of these vanilla containers and change them up for some nicer containers. Make it feel a little bit more cohesive to our container yard that we've got out here as well. Of course, a bit more detailing around the back of these warehouses out this side, and then, yeah, a little bit more surface painter, etc. around the rail yard just to finish off this area really nicely. Okay, so coming on to the second part of today's build, which is going to be industry in this little area here. Obviously, we've got quite high industrial demand at the moment, so we need some more jobs in. So we're going to be using Avania's Industrial Evolution assets again at the back here, the level 2 and level 3 assets, to create a really nice kind of warehouse yard. But the focal point of this area is actually going to be a unique factory, because I realised we don't have a single one in Solitude yet. We've got 2 industrial areas. So we may as well capitalise on that and get in a bit more money by adding in a unique factory. So because we're quite close to the oil here, the factory I'm going to actually put in is the household plastic factory. We could of course also have the bakery at the moment as well with our farming area, but we'll put that in somewhere else, I think. So we're going to go for household plastics, which just takes plastics and petroleum from the oil area, so it's nice and close. And then also easy access to the cargo train area there to transport it around the city or even export it as well. So we're going to start off by adding an entrance into this area, and we're pretty much going to fill this entire awkward space with industry and warehouses and that sort of thing. So I'm going to bring this out like this. And we are forming a crossroads here, which isn't always ideal, to say the least, but we'll manage it. I think because it's a cul-de-sac, I'm not expecting a massive amount of traffic to this area. But I mean, looking around tropical places as well, like I've said before in Solitude, and what we've tried to do elsewhere, we just go and take a look, is like little pockets of industry in amongst everything else. So it's almost like it's kind of slotted in, again, this area here, into awkward spaces around the city. And that's really what I want to get. Oh, there's still so many people using this station. So yeah, that's what I really want to get throughout the city. So again, this kind of awkward space, this is going to be taken up by industrial. So it's like the settlers kind of lived here and filled their spaces with houses where they need to. And then later on, the city decided it needed some more jobs or better kind of infrastructure from that point of view, and decided to add in all of this industry in the spaces that were left over. And what we're going to do with this road is we're actually going to take it round the side as a kind of access road to get round to all of the other industry out the back here. So we're still actually a little bit close to this, so let's just draw it out further, and then we can just snap in nicely round the back of this. And as well, this asset, we want to pay attention to it, and there is a little door on the back, so I'm thinking a little bit of staff parking out the back here might be quite a nice thing, but we are also going to introduce a big car parking lot out the front as well for all of the factory workers, because I feel like ample parking would definitely be needed in this area. And then what we're going to do is we're going to essentially like almost mirror this train line with a road here, which just runs up the length of it again, and then we'll pack in the industry buildings in and around this side of it. But we'll come back to that bit in a second. Because importantly, I do want to get some warehouses in here so that we've got the products that are needed for the household plastics factory. And I'm thinking I'm going to use Avania's warehouses for this. They're just lovely in all shapes and forms. So we're going to need at least 2, one for plastics, one for petroleum, but I'm thinking we could probably squeeze in 4 into here actually in a really nice row, and then we can have one for unique factory products and another for commercial goods, which are obviously being made by the Industrial Evolution assets once we put those in. So what I would quite like with these is the backs of them almost up against this road here. So when you're driving down, you get that kind of closed in warehouse look right next to the road here, again with the jungle on the other side. peeking through to the mall. I think that's quite a nice effect. Now it's saying they are not connected to the road now because we've moved that back, but that's not a problem. We'll just add in another concrete connector road here because once we blend it all in, we're not even going to notice that anyway. I think actually for the entranceway we may upgrade this to the industrial road so it's kind of a prominent feature, and then the rest of them can just be the concrete road as you go on in and round the complex. So yeah, that's all nicely set up, and of course I have actually forgotten to use network skins on these roads to remove the streetlights. I don't like how they stick out, and particularly when we kind of put them in the middle of big concrete yards. It does not make sense to have the streetlights on this little road, and they're tiny as well. I don't think they really fit industrial areas particularly well. Maybe like back streets to houses, yes, but not for this area. So yeah, in here we then want to add in a car park. So I'm going to go for our usual poorly maintained car parking lot roads, and we're just going to draw in quite a nice large car park into here. Let's just give it a tiny bit more space like that. Conscious obviously we don't want to interrupt the rail line there. Then we can just draw it up this way a little bit further. Then let's go ahead and add in our car parking spaces like that. And then we can have a little think about the industrial evolution assets. So yeah, the ones that I would like to use are the level 2 and a little bit of the level 3 buildings, although some of these look super duper modern, like these ones with the kind of glass bit on the end. So I want to use those a little bit more sparingly and use probably more of the level 2 style of warehouse kind of buildings. But yeah, we do want to get a few of these in, and we want to be really careful about the assets themselves. So like here we've got a back door we need to pay attention to. We've obviously got the warehouse loading on the front of this. But we can move these all around to suit. So I'm thinking we might have a few little level 3 buildings out here to create a kind of almost like a sort of out of town commercial yard is what I'm thinking with this. That's very much how these assets appear to me. So I think what we will do is do a little kind of mirrored complex like so, and then in the middle of it we can add in some parking. If we just get brush tool we can fill in all of this concrete space that we have here. This will probably be concreted almost entirely, this entire area, but we'll come back to that in the detail in time lapse. And then if we go to parking, we do have our functional yellow marked parking lots here. And again, I kind of don't really mind the mix of yellow in a lot of these, like in with all the white parking that obviously comes with most of the assets. I feel like with the kind of vibe that I'm trying to get in Solitude, the council was very mixed in their decisions, and things kind of happen without planning permission necessarily, so themes don't always go together, which is why we get our yellow parking mixed in with our white parking and that sort of thing. But yeah, we can create kind of a nice little parking area outside the front of this sort of out of town warehouse district. I'm thinking these are like tile shops and flooring shops and stuff like that, even though it's industry, but obviously that's the effect that we're going for there. And if we come back to our assets, we can start to kind of change it up as we move further away. So like we can have some bigger ones like this. I absolutely love that asset actually. Super nice warehouse. And we can use fencing and different details to kind of separate off these areas to signify what is part of each company, as it were. Let's just use reset on that because I definitely don't want the red brick. I'm kind of thinking more like greys and whites and paler colours for this kind of area. Again, we could put 2 of these like that. I'm not really sure those, like, I guess lorries are meant to come up to that, right? It's almost like a distribution window. Let's leave it a little bit more room and we can put some lorry backs facing into that. It might be quite nice there. And then perhaps we do a little warehouse in behind that. Again, we want to mix up the distances from the road so it feels a little bit more organic and less kind of like you've plopped a load of assets along the road, which is sometimes what it can feel like. So I think we'll have that little area like that there. Then we can potentially come into a few more sort of repeated patterns with this. So let's go into kind of a big, longer warehouse style building here. Which again could be lined up to this. I'm actually going to do this at the same distance despite what I've literally just said. And let's reset that so that we get the same colour as the other assets, if it's ever going to let us. And we could mix up this end with a few different styles of buildings. Potentially even bring in one slightly more modern one up next to the kind of main road here, slightly close to the town. It's got a little back entrance in, which I quite like. So we could have that here up next to the rail line as well. Might be a quite nice thing to have there. Let's go for a warehouse out this side. And then similarly, let's turn this around so it is a slightly different orientation. to the others. We'll move it a little bit further away from those warehouses to give it a bit more breathing room. There's actually only like a kind of pedestrian door on that side, so I think we can get away with that. So actually I think we'll go for another smaller Industrial Revolution building back here. Maybe a couple of those actually might be quite nice, all in a little row. So yeah, something like that. And then I think trucks can kind of get round the back to these points here, because we've got containers out the back there that obviously we want to make sure that it makes sense for them to be there. We're starting to get a little bit close to the edge of the highway there, so let's just pull these forward a tiny bit. But yeah, I think that's kind of like a general setup for it. It looks like from a further distance, obviously there's no detailing in there at the moment. But it does fill out that space really nicely and kind of adds on to this slightly more haphazard, slightly more rundown looking industrial area this side. So yeah, pretty pleased with that formation for this. So that does now lead us on to some more detailing. So for this area, it's going to be very similar to our other industrial areas in Solitude. There's going to be a big focus on decals on all of the concrete to rough up certain areas and add texture and real life kind of wear and tear to it. Obviously filling in with a lot of surface painter in between to make this all cohesive. Fencing up next to the rail, we want to make sure this rail line is really cool coming in here, so we'll have some nice chain link fencing to protect the people in the industrial area from that. Similarly from the highway slip roads here as well. We'll create like pedestrian walkway access in here too, like coming out from the main road and also back from this end in Serenity that side. And then just lots of industrial props, so quite a bit of trash, forklifts, maybe some more containers, lorry ends, that sort of thing all around this area. So I actually really like how this is slotted in next to that raised highway flyover. I think the scenery when you come in over that highway and down through that arterial are going to be pretty cool actually indeed, going through various different industrial areas, the commercial areas with the stadium and the rail yard there as well. I think it's going to be a pretty cool route down into the downtown once everything has come together. But we have satisfied a little bit of the industrial demand with this build and filled this space I think quite nicely. And it's very satisfying watching the passenger trains going past the rail yard over that raised quay as well. So yeah, pleased with the build overall. But for today, that is going to be it. So if you have enjoyed the episode, likes, comments and shares are greatly appreciated. And please let me know any name suggestions you might have for our rail yard in the comments below. Would love to take some suggestions on that. But that's all from me for now. So thank you so much for tuning in and I'll catch you again next time. Bye bye.